So far, we have discussed the concept of WACC and tried to estimate the WACC of a company, including estimating all the components such as the cost of debt, cost of equity, weight of debt, and weight of equity. One fact that we need to be aware of is that a company's overall WACC may not be the same as the WACC of each of its divisions. The company's WACC, or say the firm WACC, reflects the risk of an average project undertaken by the company. Well, within the company, different divisions may have different level of risks. Then the division's WACC should be adjusted to reflect the division's own risk and capital structure. So for example, if we look at a company like Boeing, Boeing has two big divisions, the airplane division and the defense division. So those two are different kind of businesses. And generally, the defense division is considered as less risky than the airplane manufacturing division. So it's reasonable to assume that for those two divisions, they should have different level of the cost of capital. So how do we estimate the cost of capital of each division? It's actually not an easy task. One thing we can try is we can apply a so-called pure play method to estimate the WACC for a division or a project. This is to estimate the cost of capital that the division would have if it were a standalone company. And then this requires estimating the division's beta, cost of debt, and capital structure. To estimate the division beta, we can find several publicly traded companies exclusively in the project's business and use the average of their betas as proxy of our division or our project's beta. The problem is that it's usually hard to find those companies that are so similar to our project or our division's business. We can also try the so-called accounting beta method to estimate beta for the division. This is to run regression between the project's ROA and S&P index ROA and find the beta coefficient. Is this a valid approach? Well, generally, accounting betas are pretty correlated with market betas for companies that do have market beta. So it is acceptable to use accounting beta for divisions that do not have market betas. But then the problem is if we are looking at a new project, normally we cannot get data on a new project's ROA before the capital budgeting decision has been made. Now, let's take a look at this example where we estimate cost of capital of a division using the CAPM model. So if the target debt ratio is 10%, cost of debt is 12%, risk-free rate is 5.6%, tax rate is 40%, and beta of the division is assumed to be 1.7, market risk premium is 6%. Then the division's required return of equity based on the CAPM model is the risk-free rate plus the beta of the division multiplied by the market risk premium. So the result will be 15.8%. So you see the high beta of this division, or say the high risk of this division, determines that the cost of equity for this division can be pretty high. Then if we estimate the WACC of the division, we try the same WACC formula. So we have the weight of debt multiplied by the after-tax cost of debt plus weight of the equity multiplied by the cost of equity for this division. And the result turns out to be 14.94%. And if you remember from previous calculation for the company's WACC, which is 10.4%, the idea here is for this division, its WACC is higher than the overall average company WACC. So within this division, a typical project would be accepted if and only if the returns are above the 14.94% cost of capital for this division. So as a summary of the content in this lecture, we discussed the cost of capital and the components of the cost of capital estimation. So we're looking at the cost of debt, cost of preferred stock, and the cost of common equity. For the WACC estimation, we try to estimate each component in the WACC formula and put them together to calculate a weighted average. We also discussed the factors that would affect a company or a division's WACC. The next few slides in this lecture provide a guideline for the case analysis report that you need to finish, focusing on the cost of capital estimation. The guideline or say the instructions are pretty straightforward, so they are not included in this audio, but I highly recommend you to read those slides carefully before you start writing your report. Of course, if you have any questions about that case analysis report or about this lecture, please feel free to contact me, and I'm always glad to answer your questions and discuss with you about these topics.